things have changed significantly in our everyday lives because of the COVID virus. It's something that has brought humanity together. But it's also isolated us in a physical sense, and that's the
Mhm.
beauty of being a human being in 2020 is that even though we're apart, we have created a society where we can be together. It's a fantastic time, but also at the same time, it's it's a period in that humanity is going through right now where we're really questioning ourselves. We have more time to be thoughtful. We have time to be able to do stuff like this. So is that one of the things that you've found that's changed recently the most? And what about everything that's happened has changed more so than anything else that you've been able to experience with business as usual, life as usual?
Ooh, it depends on which sense. From like I guess from like the everyday sense, it has brought people together. I think I was kind of like looking at this as people are very isolated in their everyday lives already. And I think
Right.
that this has made the opportunity for companies to realize that we can work remotely and still be together. And I think a lot of businesses, even what we've seen during the week, like doing meetings, actually funny, the other day when we were doing that MRU accelerator, you even mentioned like this is fun. And I actually agree. It was a lot more interactive than being in the classroom. And I think because people are have to be more involved because you're kind of you have to listen more carefully, you have to be more intact with you're on a screen, right? So you're being recorded. So I think it's you're actually more involved than, for example, if you're sitting at the office, everyone's kind of separated, you're doing your own task. Are you really being social? I would say no. And I think that you're currently, from what I've experienced so far this week, I feel like we are more social when we're isolated, which is a super weird thing that I've kind of seen. It's
Yeah.
like I've felt more connected than I did before because I think people are like, well, we need to be connected to stay sane. And I
Right.
think that's kind of made things more connected. That's just the way I've looked at it. But it's been an adjustment, but I think in a good way.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. I mean, I'll actually preface it with this. The MRU program that Kai is talking about is an innovator program that we were selected for and have had a fantastic experience with Simon Rabi, Hugh, a couple other individuals inside that program have been leading it up, and it's been fantastic for us. And it was I think it's about a 5 to 6 week period in which we go into MRU. We test out an idea for the company that we work for or work I guess work in. It's Virtuoso Energy, and we're testing out an idea right now to be able to become more innovative and accelerate that process. And we were in class, every company's in their different tables, and then there was the collective whole where we did our general conversations. And then this was a shift to the opposite side of things, of where the whole room moved into an online space. And I think it's probably like 30, anywhere from 30 to 45 people
Okay.
online at the same time. And it was very high performance. And we got a lot done. I found my focus was better. I felt way more engaged and on the ball. And the time went by so quickly. It was eight
Yeah.
hours. It went by so quickly. And by that I don't mean quickly as in the time just escaped. I meant that I felt that the energy that I used was so effective. By the end of the 8 hours, I still felt like I could do 8 more hours of productive based work, and it was good. Like it felt really awesome. So that was a huge benefit actually I saw already. We've been able to. I think one of the other things as well too, similar to this situation right here, I can see my own face
Yeah.
with when you're talking, when you're in person, you only really have like this perception right here. What are my hands doing? What's going on in front of me in this range, and maybe a little bit further of what's going on in the background. There's nobody walking around. There's no distractions. There's no dogs, baristas, whatever it might be, like coworkers that are distracting. It's just the only distraction that I can have in this situation is either what's going on in your background or possibly if I'm seeing myself, how I'm perceiving myself. And it's allowed me to enter a higher state of self-awareness in the way that I compose myself physically as well as how I compose myself verbally. So I feel like it's sharpening my tool set. Also, because I'm so focused on you as an individual, I learn different mannerisms about you that I didn't notice before. So maybe that's something I'm not sure, but it's something I have noticed in the last week that I've been able to pick up slight cues on individuals in
I,
our team.
almost in like social cues. Like
Yeah,
I feel
almost.
like you're learning more on like people's social cues and how they interact. And I actually like that point when you say um, that you're very aware of what you're doing. Like so you can see yourself, which I feel like you become more aware, and then you like you said, you sharpen those tools and you really kind of refine them and make yourself the best you. Where when you're looking at someone else, you're only reading them, right? You're really, you know what you're saying, but you can't tell how are they reading you. You're kind of just reading them. So it is a super interesting way to like, I guess, a new way of doing interactions, right? Because you don't ever get that opportunity in person. So it's like a completely different game that you're playing. It's weird. It's super strange, but it's cool at the same time.
Well, the other thing that I noticed that I really like as well too is in the normal scheme of things where I have meeting A and then meeting B and then meeting C, there's a buffer of 15 minutes between each meeting.
Mm,
And what I found now is that there's no buffer. My meetings are stacked, like very, very, very tightly to the point where there's no break between meetings. And I always open a conversation for first thanking the person for being able to meet with me virtually, and second, letting them know that I have a hard stop. And then 5 minutes from that time where I have the hard stop, I just remind them like, hey, let's wind down the conversation. I'm getting pretty close to my cutoff time, and so we can continue. So we can either choose to continue the conversation afterwards, and we've acknowledged the fact that I have to move on, unfortunately, or we just floss it out there, and I take the last 5 minutes, I write the next steps, and I get the to do go. The notes are transposed, and we can get moving on. And because of that, I found that my productivity goes up. I don't have to collect my thoughts, unwind, get into the next meeting, maybe throw on a jacket, get in the car, quickly head somewhere. It's like, no, I'm just here. I'm present, and I don't have to shift myself from Gursh in a meeting to Gursh as a moving human, and then Gursh in a meeting. It's like, no, I'm just ready. I'm here to receive whatever I need to get out of this meeting, and I'm good to go. So it's been a positive in that way as well too. I find that I'm just at ease more to be able to get doing something. And if somebody else shows up late, I'm not like, where is this person? I'm stuck. I'm like, okay, I can just work on stuff. I can take a look at what's
yeah, like answer emails or like, yeah, which is super cool.
happening. And if that person is late, same thing happens again. I'm like, uh, by the way, hard stop this time. Let's go. And you can dive right into it, right? So it's more fluid almost. Even though the environment is technically out of control, it's never been in more control because you've been forced into one space.
Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting, and I think one of the other big things, one of the takeaways from how everything unfolded, and obviously like to backtrack, like it all happened within like a week, right?
Right.
Like last week things weren't fine, but they were okay. And I think one thing that I like about this is the companies that have adjusted and the companies that have made the shift to going online, it was never planned. So like sure, there's the big corporations that have like a process and a plan in place, but like all the companies that have had to adjust quickly, they've just made it happen. And I think that's the coolest part about this is planning is like great when it comes to a lot of these things, but I think you always come up with some amazing plans when you're forced to do it.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things that we noticed too, and I'm sure you noticed as well, is like all of a sudden now you're doing a proposal, for example, that's structured as an in-person proposal, and now you're like, okay, how do I now put that online and go through that proposal with that person, but in online fashion? So you have to be different with the words you choose. You have to explain the pages differently. You can't exactly be like pointing to something because it's awkward on the screen, right? You're adjusting, but you weren't planning for it. So I think that's one of the cool things too. It's fun. Like I would call it fun because you get to kind of see what works and doesn't work, but you get to learn really quickly. Which nowadays is like happens all the time in business, right? You're learning everything so quickly that planning is there, but I think you can have that base plan and then you expand it into actually like on the spot, utilizing those. And like you said, back to back meetings. And it's actually not even, I don't know if you had this week as well, but I actually had people doing that to me too. Like I had a couple clients like, yeah, I have another call at like 5 p.m. We need to cut it off at 5. Like, let's go through the meat and like the stuff that's really important. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect for me. Like I have an hour or two. So I think it does get people more focused on time management, where in an office situation, you're sitting there for 8 hours. Like, yeah, you know what, drag it out for 15 minutes. It's okay. I have a bit of in between time to drive, or I can hop on this. So I think it is a lot different how you have to approach the meetings.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, one other thing that I did notice as well too is the with the time blocking and making and doing those meetings back to back. The
Hmm.
one area that I could probably use improvement is making sure that I'm taking breaks because
Yeah, yeah.
I have not been taking breaks, and I'm well. We can. This is unfortunate, but our marathon got canceled yesterday. So one thing that's super cool that beyond us working together is we're friends, right? So we've always committed to being able to push the boundaries together on our whatever limitations that we feel that we have in front of us, and we agreed to 50 marathons, 50 marathons, and that ideally maybe one a year, but in some years we might have to do two. But I'll be pretty much 80 by the time we finish this if we do one a year, which is awesome. I want to be that old guy, but it'd be epic. So going back to the point, our marathon got canceled yesterday, and the unfortunate part about that is we've both been pretty good for training on a consistent basis. I was running this past weekend. It was cold. It was cold. It was not the most enjoyable, but it really tests my mental boundaries and just prove the effectiveness of committing to the marathon because you have to do the training as part of that. But because I have that mechanism in my life where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be training after this and I'm going to go for a 10, 15 kilometer run, whatever it might be. I'm just sitting here knowing that I have that. And I don't actually think that's good because for the first time ever, like I've never had a sore knee before. Never had a sore
Mhm.
knee before. And this last week, it's been I can feel like the muscle tissue just tight, super, super tight. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never had this before. So have you noticed anything like that? That with all these little adjustments that we've made, that your body is sore in different ways that you haven't experienced before, even though we're very physically active?
Yeah, I would say yes. Like so I guess role wise, the quickly background, so operations side of things, I would say I'm like in the office 50% of the time I'm sitting at my desk, so I'm fairly active
Yeah.
when it comes to the role. And I think that's been one of the hardest things too, is like I try to take the micro breaks, like I'll get up, get a glass of water, play with my dog, or like whatever I'm doing in this current situation. But I've noticed a lot that like when it comes to my back is something that's taken a toll with this because I'm not as active of like you said, those in between meetings times, those are good for that because you get up, you go to your car, you quickly jump in your car, you go to park your car, you're doing all these different things where now you're not doing that, right? You're sitting here, you're in a meeting, you're eating your lunch in the same spot, maybe you're doing everything. And I think that's been the one part, like my back for sure, a little bit on my neck, but that's other problems before. Um, and so it has been kind of weird for that. But one thing I've noticed is doing that split up for like the run is really nice when you kind of have that opportunity to do it whenever you want. So the one thing that's cool about the working from home side of things is you have a task, or again, on our side, it's a little bit more than just your everyday tasks, but you could be like, you know what, right now I'm hitting a wall. I'm just going to go for a run. I'm going to walk my dog. Where in the office, you're not going to get up and be like, hey guys, like I'm going home. I'm going to walk my dog, right? You're not going to drive home and do that. So I think
You
that's
feel,
been one of the
you feel guilty
adjustments.
at the office. You feel guilty.
Yeah, you feel guilty because you're like, I feel like you're everyone's working and you're like, you know, I can't just get up and do this. But the problem with that, and then I'm bad for this, is then I'm like, okay, well, I feel guilty, and then I won't do it, but I'll actually be less productive because I didn't do that. So then I'm like, is it actually smarter for you to actually go and just be like, screw it, like I'm good. I'm gonna go take an hour, 45 minutes. I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna run, stretch, come back, and then I can hammer out those couple hours, right? Like
Yeah.
it's weird, and I think that's something that I'm learning a lot too right now is being able to do those things and not feeling guilty. I think if you know, or if you communicate with your team, it's not actually as hard as you think, and that's been one of the biggest things there when it comes to. But on the body like sore side, definitely feel it in different areas than before.
Yeah, so maybe we'll have to discuss that more separately and come back with our findings of how we were able to get around that. But let's set something up to be able to make sure that we
Yeah,
overcome in a sense as well too. Because the cool thing I think about what you just highlighted is we have awesome team members. Like we have like
yeah,
Collins in Edmonton, he's actually been working from home for a while, so he's got this floss. Like he has a very good process, a nice setup, like a dog at home. Like he's got a really good setup. And for Francis and Asford, they're adjusting now, right? They're new, but I trust them. And I know that Asford, for example, is a night owl. That guy has like we've gone out with him, right? Like obviously, like he's a great person to be around, and the energy that he carries in the evening is insane. He's like it's awesome to be able to witness, to see that amount of energy in an individual. And the more that you think about it, it's like, well, he's got a mixture of tasks. He's a project manager. He has the ability to do a chunk of his work after hours because he doesn't have to interact with individuals per se. And then there's a chunk of stuff that he has to get done during hours.
Mm-hmm.
But that dynamic is a little bit different, right? It's spread up into different tasks. So what if, based on what you were saying, as for his day is a dynamic day, he does what he wants. He's at home. He answers the calls if there's material being dropped off to site and big for larger projects, and the coordination has to be key. He can step into that, and that, let's say for example, that happened at 11 a.m. until 11:30, and he did his role there. And then what if he wants to go and have a nice lunch with a partner or some friends or whatever it might be? He now has that ability to do that, knowing the volume of work that he has to do. And because we've always, in a sense, enabled him, he's always ran at a high pace, at his own pace. I think it'd probably be fair to say that we would just be, go do whatever you do, as long as you get it done, it's great. And then you giving that freedom, or not even giving that freedom, the person almost has a right to that freedom.
Yeah.
Is because they've proven themselves. And even that construct of like proving yourself is a complex one as well too, right? We all have obligations, we all have responsibilities, we all have I guess, how would I put this, is how would you formulate this guy? Like how would you put this into context of what we have to bring to one another when we're talking about achieving operational excellence? Like, is it an obligation? Is it a responsibility?
I think it's responsibility. I think communication. Like you said, I think the biggest thing that we're learning is that just communicating everything. And so even working with Az for very closely this week on a lot of speed bumps and a lot of different issues that have come out of this, it's pretty much we talked about it. We would look at, okay, like how do we communicate this with everybody properly? How do we tread the waters on like what's going on, right? Like even when you're saying with Az for having to do those things, we have to communicate with a long line of people, right? You're communicating with a direct customer or a general contractor or the guys in the field or the guys delivering or whatever aspect is it. And I think it really comes down to just having good communication and being available. And I think that the whole aspect of being remote gives you that freedom that, like you said, you could technically go and have lunch or go for a walk. You can still get those tasks done, and they don't always have to be during this certain set period of hours. So I think I would say the biggest part is organization on the communication side, is how we would get the best, I think, results out of that. Yeah, I think that's the way I would look at it. And that's what, again, I'm learning a lot. Like I said, I've been learning a lot with operations side remotely, because you really have to cater to everyone's needs, right? And in the end, everybody's needs is getting the job done. And when hiccups come into play, it's always, well, I can't do this, or we can't do that, or this, and someone has to be the first one to do these things. And I think that's the hardest thing so far. So
Yeah, no, that's a good
yeah,
way to put it. So, I mean, so many different changes have had to be made. Let's talk about that.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously, and not obviously. To clarify, I'm generally responsible for the business development in the company, and the side of our business that has seen an adjustment has been the sales process. But
Mhm.
because we cater to clients across BC, across Alberta, sometimes for very custom projects, we'll go into other areas as well too. But we've always been set up for virtual meetings. We have a very clean process on how to be able to present our services in an online platform. We have pre-templated documents to allow that walkthrough to seem seamless, right? It's been crafted over, I guess it's over years now. It's been
Mhm.
crafted to a fine point. You're responsible for operations. That's a different game altogether. The guys are fully exposed, and or the girls in the field, right? Like
Yeah.
what is that? What does that look like? What adjustments have you guys had to make?
Well, adjustments all over. So looking at like who are we dealing with? So like, let's say a residential client's an end user. Those are a little bit easier to deal with because you're not interacting with the client as much. You can kind of keep the social distancing. You can mitigate it quite a bit. But the biggest ones that we've seen this week are our commercial projects. You're working with, depending, let's say, two, three, four, five guys at once together. Now you have to talk to the individuals about what's going on and what are their feelings towards the situation and how do they feel for safety and all that. And then you have to figure out how do you bring them all together so that you're meeting all of their needs in one place and that nobody's kind of like nervous or not comfortable, right? Because you got to kind of look at, one person might be completely fine. You know what? I'm healthy. I understand the situation. If I take these measures, I'll be okay. But then another person on the team could be like, you know what? I don't want to be close to someone. I'm not comfortable with this. I want to wear a mask, right? Or whatever it is. So you're kind of dealing with that. But at the same time, you're dealing with project deadlines and sites not being shut down yet. So I think the biggest thing that this week we learned was, okay, if something arises, one of the things was like jumping in. So like we always do that anyways, but like myself having to jump in and take care of a certain aspect so that you can meet the people's needs in the field, like going and taking material deliveries to ease the burden off of the field team because one or two people weren't comfortable and are actually at home taking their quarantine, right? Which is fine. It's just being able to adjust that. So in the operations side, again, it comes back to communication and being able to communicate with the guys or with the girls in the field, and then taking that and extracting the information and then communicating that to the client or to the general contractor, which is the client in a sense, and just kind of having that line open and being honest. Like I feel like the biggest thing is being honest. So even if something happens on site that you're like, this is the situation that's happening around the whole world and it has affected us, and this is us
Well, I
being
think
vulnerable or honest
just
about
to
it.
touch on that, let's just put it this way: we're never dishonest, but
No.
I think what it is instead is you can be honest but withhold information.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is a completely different setup. It's that you're not withholding information intentionally in the previous scheme of things. And this, sorry,
No,
this
no.
is a question. Is it more along the lines that you're actually just giving every piece of information that you have available just in case there's a minute detail that could potentially shift the entire situation? Is that maybe a better way or
Well, I guess a better way to explain it is like if you're on a site and someone's sick, you don't send out an email to the general contractor saying one of your guys is sick, right? Like that's, unless he's like super, like he obviously wouldn't come to work. But if a guy's got a cold, you're not going to send that out. But in this sense, you're more of like there's critical information that can impact everyone around you. And I think our actions are so heavily impacted on other people currently that you can't just take that for granted. So we've, like, again, if someone's sick, right away we talk to client or the GC and mention that to them, like, hey, this was the situation and this is how we're handling it, whether it's being tested or whatever it is. And then here's the update, and keeping them updated. And I think they appreciate that, rather than before it's like, someone's sick on the team, we're going to keep doing this. So it's been a weird, different adjustment for that.
well, it's
And
not
just making sure, sorry, as well, that the employees are comfortable, because as much as people right now are saying, well, you have this sick leave, not everyone's comfortable, right? You're, in the end, you're still putting food on your table, or your whatever your reason is for working. Everybody has to make money. And I think people might still not be comfortable being honest and being like, you know what, I'm sick, I don't feel good, I need to take this 14 days, or I'm not comfortable working. And you really want to be able to have that honesty. And again, it's not like a lying aspect, it's more of bringing out that people can really talk about these things and be comfortable that they can mention that to whoever it is, and not be like, I'm going to get a backlash from this. And I think that's a hard part about leadership as well.
well, yeah, I guess so. And I think it's the difference between being a leader and being a boss, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, there's a thought process that more aligns with being a boss, that knowledge is power. But in leadership, it's that the power exists in sharing the knowledge.
Mhm.
And specifically in a situation like this, the power doesn't exist in anybody's hands because it's been completely stripped away from us. There's no playing games, there's no shifting of dynamics, there's no, and this is in the greater scheme of things. This is definitely not what we do internally, but not in the greater scheme of things. It's we've everything has been stripped away, and I think it's fair to say we've just become human. And the crazy thing about that is both of you and I as individuals have experienced some crazy stuff. Like for example, your parents, they're set up their life in a way where they're able to travel at this time of the year. So at this time of the year, what is it that they generally do?
They usually go to the U.S., put it down south.
Yeah, and I know there was. I know you were starting. Sorry, I'm missing. There's been so much going on lately. I know there's pieces of information. It's probably better if you tell this story. There was. I know they ended up getting stopped at the border, but I don't know the entire situation. So what happened?
Well, yeah, just restrictions on traveling. They weren't allowed into the U.S. at all. So like it's just a weird impact of that they had friends here that came from out of the country, but before everything happened. So it wasn't part of the date that the government had set for the where you had to quarantine yourself.
This
They
wasn't
had
this wasn't this week then.
no, so they were before,
Okay.
but which means they were okay. But the problem was when they went to the border, the border security obviously didn't look at it like that, and he like yeah like took it again. It's everybody's own their safety, right? But he just took it very seriously and was really mad that they actually tried to come in, and then they had to drive their friends to Calgary and get on a plane to fly back home because shutting down the borders, right? So it's been like a chaotic time
That's
for that too.
crazy. And well, I guess in retrospect now that looking after it, because I've obviously, and I'll dive into this afterwards. I've had my own little experience with family as well, but with that situation that unfolded, are you happy that they actually didn't get through and they're in Canada instead of the States?
Oh yeah, with the healthcare system for sure. Because I think right now I saw a statistic, and don't quote me on this. I don't even really want to say it because I said don't quote me. But
Still
it was
fine. Go
like
ahead.
$30,000 or $40,000 it's costing someone if they go into the hospital right now if they're diagnosed.
I know I've
I'd
seen,
have to look.
yeah, I've
Did you
seen
see
some
that?
lineup videos of people wanting to get swabbed and tested, and it's just the longest lines and
Yeah.
cars. So I mean, ultimately, I think both countries have their positive and negative. Both countries are good countries in their own way, bad countries in their own ways. So there's no perfect place to live. But I think your parents being at home in a place where they're comfortable and we are very aware of the parameters in which we're governed under is no matter what is always going to be a better situation. Plus, if it really comes down to it and there's like an emergency, do you still have the ability to access your parents physically? They are in BC.
Hmm.
They are in
Yeah, two and a
Australia.
half hours. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not too far away, right? So there's that consideration. My situation is is a little bit different, right? So same thing. My family's 2.5 hours away, Calgary. They're in Edmonton, and this dynamic has been quite interesting. Like I have a 2.5-year-old daughter who, as crazy as this sounds, I've actually been her connection with me has deepened exponentially in this short period of time of me being able to just quickly walk upstairs, play with her, very focused, leave the phone downstairs, understand that I'm about to enter her space for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. So it's been really fun on that side because I've noticed that the first couple of years of her life being heavily involved in a business like Virtuoso, there's time restraints, right? Travel restraints, so on and so forth. But now it's just like, no, she has full access to me. And sorry, my wife has been working at home as well too, and she's actually working full time. So hers is still considerably more structured than what I can do. I have the flexibility to work to one hand. She's very regimented and hits that 8 to 9 hour window when which she's getting her work done. So that's the first thing that I noticed was a little bit different. The second thing as well is my family dynamic. So my eldest sister and my mom are both nurses, and my dad is a taxi driver. So all three of those individuals are highly exposed. So my dad is transporting people back and forth to places. So even in some cases where people were going to get tested or going to the doctors, he was exposed on that side of things. My eldest sister is in a situation where she's also exposed to people with health concerns. And then there's my mom's situation. She's in a department that focuses on mental health and the well-being of individuals who have some pretty dire mental illnesses, and they need injections on a regular basis. And they were a department of 8 people and now have gone down to 2. And my mom is 63, 64. So sorry, I always forget those names, the year, how old she is. But though that's a prime target based on this specific virus and in a highly viral area of where she could get exploited. So for me, as crazy as it sounds, my concerns aren't really a problem. All of this is very luxurious in a sense that I have the ability to control my environment and execute on the work that I need to be done, and having access to my wife and my daughter. But for the people who are the frontline people, like it's even the border crossing individual, like those people are deemed compromised, but no matter what, are in the mental position where they have to do this. And this is partially the reason they got into the work that they're doing, is that they are people who are open to serving individuals and sacrificing themselves for the betterment of society. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen has changed recently, is that finally the people who are the backbones of society are the spotlight is on them. More than ever, we now fully understand how important they are. And even I myself am guilty sometimes to forget that, like, those people day in and day out show up, make sure they're ready to go, and execute on what they have to get done. And it's so easy to just forget about them because you get caught up in running around and getting your own life to where you want it to be, and you forget about those individuals and all the stuff that they're
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a interesting time. Even like you don't even realize, even like store clerks or like whatever it is, right? Like you're so exposed, and I think it's super crazy to see. Like there's obviously been measures taken, but still, yeah, like they're showing up every day and exposing themselves to
doing.
this, right? We're lucky enough we can sit here and work remotely and talk about how it's gonna affect our team and our business. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's people that are, but it's always like that, right? Is looking at outside of your world and kind of getting yourself into other people's shoes and seeing how they're operating. And it's impressive. And I think that's why, going back to the very beginning of the conversation, is I feel like this has brought people together. I feel like as much it is isolating us, again, touching on that point, society is starting to work together on something and fight something together, which is always a beautiful thing, right? Like diamonds in the rough come out of this. You learn so much about people around you, and you learn so much about everything in society and how it all interacts, and actually what you need to make a society go round, and how crazy and complex it actually really is. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, and don't I'll take this line away from you. Don't quote me on this, but I'm going to reference a quote out of context. I believe and I don't actually remember the person behind it, so maybe I'll tag it in the bottom or something afterwards. But there's a quote that says that democracy is the worst form of organizing people until you look at all the other ways that you can organize people, and then it turns out democracy is the best one. And why I bring that up is this whole scenario is about leadership. And for example, even internally with Virtuoso, if I was the person that deemed the individual that had to make all the decisions, I would probably act like a boss. I would be like, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, deadline for this, deadline for that, deadline for this. But I have you, I have other people, I have Asfer, I have Francis, I have Colin, I have Jan, like I have all these other individuals in our organization in which I constantly bounce ideas off of. And that allows leadership to survive or thrive, sorry, not survive, but to thrive. And I think one thing that always ends up getting mixed up in the greater scheme of things in business, life, whatever it might be, you have to play a leader in every side of things. And leadership isn't an individual being a leader. Leadership is a collective sum of a combination of consequences and feelings and actions that we put into a single mechanism and call it leadership. And I think ultimately what's happening right now is society is functioning as leaders, that we've collectively acknowledged people's emotions, said that, yeah, this is scary, this is not something that we've ever experienced before, acknowledged the consequences and said, okay, if we don't take care of this, there's a lot of bad stuff that can happen. And then collectively we come together as leaders and now say that, okay, these are the actions that we need to put into play and this is how we're going to handle this. So I think Canada is showing leadership through our people. And there's other countries that have done an excellent job as well too. I mean, there's so much going on. I personally haven't been able to keep up with it, but even some of the actions that China took it's been great. Like they've not everything is perfect, not every scenario is ideal. But one of the countries that was most heavily affected by SARS, for example, was Taiwan. But if you look at what Taiwan did in this situation, there's been no effect. It's business as usual there, right? So it's it comes back to the whole thing is that I think we're moving in a direction now with all of us being isolated, quote unquote isolated, that we are now in a situation where leadership can thrive, that we can step away from the individualistic mindset in the mental or the medicine, even though we're individualized in our physical sense, and actually focus on collectively working together.
Well, I think on that too, which is cool, is what I've seen a lot, and I think is going to come out of this is team building. Like this is a forced way for a team to build, right? Because you're forced to be in interactions that you're not comfortable with. And I know a lot of people, we talked about this on our meeting yesterday with the team, is we're not looking at this as like, okay, we're going to slow down. We're going to look at, we need to go into like danger mode. It's how do we come out of this stronger than before, right? Like how do we go into this situation that's been thrown at us? How do we come out better? Or not better, but just stronger, more educated, more, I guess, just sharpen our tools, right? Like work on our inner tools on the team. And one of the biggest things for that is everybody on the team wants to take courses. They want to get better at what they're doing. They want to come out stronger than ever, right? And I think that's something, it's almost like a forced team building that you always want to do, but when things are so busy or when things are going at normal pace, you can't, because you have to go on to like team building activities and things like that. But this is like, no, you have to step out of your comfort zone, and you can finally take that time to be like, hey, you know what? I have a bit of extra hours. I love doing social media. I'm going to take a course on social media to get better at that, so that overall the whole team can be better at social media. And I think that is true leadership, because everybody in the team steps up, and it's not just one person. It's every single person steps up to make sure that the team can thrive during this time of chaos, or I guess not chaos, but time of uncertainty.
Yeah, uncertainty for sure is the right word in that situation. I mean,
Yeah.
you made a lot of good
So I
points.
don't know.
You know what would be actually pretty fun as well too?
Hmm.
If, with the online team building, if we this just reminds me of like childhood and having an N64, like Super Smash Bros, Mario Kart, all that kind of stuff. If there's a way that we could figure out how to do like some online gaming and just have a little bit of fun. I know not everybody's into
A
video games.
LAN party.
Yeah, like a LAN party. Like that might
Oh
be
man.
that might be a really good fun way to just be able to like crack some jokes and release some of that stress, because like we know this and we've proven it. Productivity doesn't come by just putting your head against the grindstone and just going as hard as possible. Productivity comes about being thoughtful in the execution, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, this is I mean the opportunities are immense. But like, what's your favorite thing been? I know there's so many things that you can always complain about. What's your favorite thing been since you've been parked at home?
I think my funny enough, and I don't know, this is just how I am, but I think my favorite thing has been the challenge. Like just getting new challenges thrown in front of me that excuse me, that I'm not used to. That I think sorry, that have really let me adjust and be able to do what I'm good at. And I think that is like making those challenges, bringing them together in not a normal sense of kind of the everyday routine. That's been my favorite part, doing that. And I love people step up and be leaders in their roles and be willing to step outside their comfort zone. So that's been one of the biggest things through this whole thing. We've experienced that huge. Like even yesterday, again, bringing it back to this all the time, but the team meeting for the office side, it was super cool. Everybody was involved. It's cool to see that, and I haven't seen that as much before, because that's not as something common, right? Where you get together like that. and just seeing, yeah, just seeing all of that. I think that's been my favorite part. It's just being able to face those challenges and enjoying that journey towards conquering them. So
Yeah. How about in the personal sense? Like, is there anything on on the personal side that you've found during this period of time that you've liked?
oh yeah, the personal side, it gives you an opportunity to be more involved in things at home, I guess, or at the house, like when it comes to Benji, my girlfriend. Just being able to kind of, I don't know, like really control your time and your efficiencies of integrating your schedules in personal and work balance. That's been like my favorite thing, is just being able to see how other people react in your personal life as well, and kind of everybody steps in to
Yeah.
do their best part, and making sure that you're staying sane as well, right? When you're with someone or with the same people under the same roof for a long period of time, it can become hard. But I feel like that's not at all how it's been. It's been fun. It's one of the things I always like to say is you got to have fun with everything. Like you can't look at it as this is gonna be a time where we have to find out fun things to do. It's just keep doing what you're doing, have fun, and do things that maybe you wouldn't do before. Figure out new ways to work out at home with your partner, or play games, or whatever it is. It's, I don't know. I like that part. It's a lot of, I think it's fun in that way. So what about you?
Yeah, that's I think my favorite thing that's been I'll start off on the work side of things is yeah, it's a little bit tricky. I think it comes down to gratitude. My mind always ends up going down back to like the a gratitude position is I have two highly functional workstations in this room that I'm in, and they're both equipped with docking stations, dual screens, whatever it is that you need. Everything is here, printers, whatever. It's all set up to be like I would never have an interruption in my ability to execute the business if needed. Bluetooth headsets, whatever it is, it's all here. So for me, I look at the situation and I've been able to see whether it be on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever social media platform I'm taking information in from right now, is that a lot of people don't have that setup. They're working at their kitchen table. Some people have these really nice desks, but they're pulling up like a couch or something else like that, and they just they don't have the same access that I do. And it's put things in perspective. And I'm always an individual that requires perspective. I don't. It's how I become more aware. Is I need to be able to see a situation and then reflect upon what I'm taking in from that information. And it's put me in a position where I'm just really, really grateful for the house that I have. This sound deadened room that has the ability to execute work in a professional manner. And then also for like certain family members like my mother-in-law has been helping out with Emma so that Jan and I can really make sure that we're sticking to our responsibilities and getting the work done that we need to get done. But that's probably from the professional side what I feel is the thing that I've liked the best so far is this space, being able to call home and having the functionality in my home. On the personal side, hands down, having access to Emma, she's so much fun, and I know it's always kind of a hard conversation to have for me as an individual because I know some people don't have kids. So how do I make this relatable? Right? It's always the thought that I think of is that okay, Gursh is going to talk about his daughter again. We know he loves her. She's super cute. Like yada yada yada. Right? So that let's put that one aside. Let's put that in a different piece. That's obvious. The thing that I think I've liked the most of being at home on the personal side of things is as crazy as this sounds, is seeing Janet and how she works. I always have this image in my mind of, she comes home, she achieves a lot. She's done really well where she's worked and constantly gone up and up and up and at quite a fast pace. And then when I do have access to her, and in terms of getting advice from her or whatever it might be, even for yourself, like she's an amazing person, right? And being able to see her work in her environment, how she speaks, how she interacts, how she's just destroying getting work done, that has been that's added on the relationship side of me. It's been able to allow me to admire her more than I already do. And for the other counterpoint to it is that it's pushing me even further than I thought I could go on the professional side and as playing the role of husband and dad. So that's, I know it sounds kind of silly, but probably my favorite thing of having this situation forced upon us.
Oh, yeah, it's super cool. I think that is a big part of just seeing. You don't really get to see that, right? Because you see, like, for example, Shantae's still in school, so it's like I don't get to see how she interacts in the school vibe and like how in the zone and all the cool stuff, and like even being able to interact with that and see what she's learning, and
Yeah,
like seeing everything go online, and like, yeah, like exactly the articulation through the conversations and like the cool stuff they're doing, and just seeing how they actually interact and in their own environment is awesome. And just being able to experience that is not something that you get to experience all the time. And I think it's cool, and it gives you a perspective on how hard the other personal relationship works as well, which I think sometimes I forget. And it's given me that perspective a lot on like a respect aspect of that. I really do obviously respect greatly what she's doing as well, and then what we're doing. So it's cool. It gives you that open eye effect as well.
yeah. It's like having wings or having gills, right? I think
Yeah.
it's fair to say we as humans have always walked on land, and then all of a sudden, if you got wings overnight, I think from my perspective, and I know you well enough. I know you would do the same as well too. You'd be like, hold on, I have wings here. I'm gonna fly as far as I can, as quickly as I can, but also in some cases as slowly as I can, so I can fully take in the experience. Because you know at a
Mhm.
certain point that those wings are gonna be gone, right? If or you're gonna be of that mindset that I only have this ability for a limited period of time. So it's interesting. I think as individuals, we are taking full advantage of the situation that we're currently in, and making sure, just as we approach the other side of reality, that we embody it for everything that it has to offer, good and bad, and fully understand the mechanisms that it has to offer, so that we can actually take some of these attributes and apply them to our land bearing self, in a sense, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, let's cap it there. I think this has been a really good conversation. It was one that you and I wanted to have at the spur of a moment. We've always wanted to kind of do this. So is there anything else that you want to add? Anything else that you want to throw in?
No, I think it's just looking at the positives, and when I think things around you seem negative, always look for the positive and reach out to the people that are close to you. And I think this is all about together fighting this battle and being able to achieve great things out of it. And I think that this is super cool. It's a lot of fun. This is something that pushed our comfort zone that we've always said about we're gonna do this, we never have. And I think that's what I love seeing. And like I said, those are the challenges that come out of these times, that they push you to a limit where you don't think you can get there. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm taking away from this, is that there is no limit and there's no quit. So
Yeah, no, I love that. And actually, I'll leave you with this thought, and let me know you don't have to let me know if you agree with this, but take it for what it's worth. There's there's always a saying that a glass is half empty and a glass is half full.
mhm.
Very well known. Somebody at some point in humanity, along like the development of humanity, came out with that thought process. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I said, you know what? There is no. It's not that the glass is half empty or half full. The glass is full. It's it's an equal volume of water at all times. It's actually the size of the glass that changes. Is your is your glass growing, or is your glass sinking? What you've been given in life is the water. You'll always have that same volume of water. Are you shrinking as an individual and allowing that water to escape, therefore losing the value in life? Or are you allowing yourself to build up, to become bigger, to allow more to come into that now available space?
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's a good way to look at it. I think you're always filling that glass, and it's you always want it to be overflowing, right? Like I think the moment you stop doing that is the moment that
Yeah.
things just, yeah, come to a screeching halt. So I definitely
Yeah, it's
agree.
always, you got to make sure you accept what you've been given and make as much room as possible, so you can always, like you said, have it so it's full, right? So
Hmm.
no, it's like I said, it's just a random thought, right? But it's times like this in conversations that allow you to think freely, which is
Yeah, I agree.
all right, my friend.
Sweet.
Okay, on the flip side,
Well, that was awesome. Good.
yeah,
I'm excited to
thanks
keep doing this.
thanks for everybody else out there who's listening to.
Thanks.